All right, so today we're diving into something pretty unique.
Yeah,
WandaVision.
definitely unique.
And I gotta say, all the sources you sent in, it's obvious this show
Yeah.
really got to you guys.
Oh, for sure.
And not just like your typical Marvel action flick.
Right.
This thing messed with our heads with the whole sitcom format.
Yeah, who would have expected that? Sitcoms in the MCU. It's wild.
Not what you picture when you think Marvel, right?
Not at all. But it's brilliant, though, right? That blend of genres, it's like unexpected.
Absolutely.
And it works. Later we'll dig into some of those sources you send in about that genre bending.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think what really grabbed everyone, it's how WandaVision takes these big, heavy themes. Grief, loss, what's real, what's not.
Yeah.
And it makes you think,
Yeah.
what if I could just make my own reality to deal with pain?
That's deep.
Right.
Okay, so gotta start with the sitcom thing.
Yeah, the sitcom obsession.
Right. Each episode, it's like a time machine through TV history.
It is.
We go from like that black and white I Love Lucy vibe
Oh, yeah.
to that like super colorful Full House energy. I even caught
Oh, for sure.
hints of Bewitched and Brady Bunch in
They're
there.
all in there.
What stands out to you about all these different eras of TV?
It's not just about looking like the old shows.
Yeah.
It's how they use those sitcom formulas
Yeah.
to get at these complicated family dynamics and how people cope.
Okay.
Like, take that Dick Van Dyke Show episode.
Okay.
On the surface, it's all laughs, those classic sitcom misunderstandings.
Yeah.
But underneath, it's Wanda fighting to keep her fake reality from falling apart.
Oh, interesting.
Like, her powers are glitching, just like those sitcom pratfalls.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that.
And then it's not just subtle hints either.
Right.
That Malcolm in the Middle episode,
Yeah.
Wanda Braced the Fourth Wall,
Oh, yeah.
talks to us, the audience,
Right, Charlie.
admits something's wrong.
That was a big moment.
Huge. Like, her grief is cracking through that sitcom facade.
Yeah, totally.
And it's brilliant. They didn't just stick to the wholesome stuff either.
Oh, interesting.
You see influences from weirder shows like Too Many Cooks.
Welly.
Yeah, on Adult Swim.
Wow, I would never have.
Adds those layers of unease
Yeah.
underneath the happy surface.
So it's not just like comfort TV.
No.
It's messing with our expectations.
Yeah.
And at the heart of it all,
Right at the center.
Wanda and Vision.
The unusual couple.
Living their perfect life in Westview, but you just know right from the start,
From the very beginning,
something's not right.
deeply wrong.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's seen the other Marvel movies
The MCU. Yeah.
knows this perfect life.
It's her response to Vision's death.
Right.
But WandaVision makes it a mystery.
Yeah, even if you don't know the backstory.
You're still hooked. Like, what is real?
Yeah, how far will she go?
Exactly.
And then we've got these supporting characters.
Oh, they add so much.
Yeah, Darcy Lewis, she's bringing her science brain to the whole thing.
The science perspective.
Right, then there's Jimmy Woo, FBI guy, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And Agnes,
Yeah.
the nosy neighbor,
Oh, Agnes.
who turns out to be way more than just a neighbor.
So much more.
From the articles you read, did any one character really stand out to viewers?
There was a lot of talk about how each of them, they represent a different way
Okay.
of confronting the truth about Westview.
Interesting.
Darcy, she's all science, wants to understand the how of the hex.
The technical side.
Right. Jimmy, he's law enforcement, focused on keeping people safe.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then Agnes, well, her real identity, Agatha Harkness.
Oh, right.
Powerful witch from the comics.
Yeah,
That adds
yeah.
a whole other level of, supernatural mystery.
It's like they each have a piece of the puzzle,
Exactly.
and watching them try to figure it all out,
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
it is.
And that's what makes this show more than just superheroes, right?
So much more.
It's about grief and loss, but
Yeah.
like on a human level.
Absolutely. And one of the sources you sent, it made a great point about how WandaVision it shows grief in a way we can all relate to.
Okay.
You see Wanda in denial, bargaining, even angry,
Yeah.
all while she's building this fantasy world.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, how far would any of us go?
To escape pain?
Yeah, to escape pain, to avoid that hurt.
I gotta admit, I was torn.
Yeah.
I get where she's coming from, but what she's doing.
It's complicated.
Yeah. Did you feel that conflict too?
Oh, for sure. It's like she's holding up this mirror, to how we all want to escape sometimes. But then it asks, what if you could?
And what if it went wrong?
Exactly. What would the consequences be?
That's heavy stuff.
It is, but it's handled so well.
Yeah.
Using those sitcom tropes, so comforting and unsettling at the same time.
Yeah, brilliant.
And I think that's why it hit people so hard, especially during the pandemic,
Yeah,
when the world was upside down.
everything felt uncertain.
Right. WandaVision gave us permission to feel our own pain.
To talk about it.
Yeah, you don't see that much in superhero stories.
So we've talked about this sitcom format, how it connects to Wanda's grief.
Right.
But visually, this show is unlike anything else in the MCU.
Oh, yeah, visually stunning.
It's not just CGI explosions and stuff.
No, it's capturing the feeling of those old TV shows.
Right, like perfectly.
They nailed it.
They went all out, right? Recreating that old TV
Well,
look.
yeah, from grainy black and white film
Yeah.
to those CRT scan lines,
Right.
like in the Bewitched episode.
Mm-hmm.
They actually built sets like they did back then.
Really? Wow.
Used old cameras, lighting techniques.
That's dedication.
It's like you're really back in the 60s.
But they use those effects to blur the lines, too,
Yeah.
between what's real and what's Wanda's world.
That scene where Vision walks through the wall
Oh, yeah.
and you see the static, the colors glitching.
Nutshell.
It's like they're showing us the cracks in her reality.
Right, right.
And the music adds to that unsettling feeling, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Did anything specific about the score stick with you?
Oh, definitely. It's that mix of classic sitcom music,
Mm-hmm.
but with this darker, like, almost creepy undercurrent.
Yeah, like it's lulling you in.
Yeah. And then,
Bam.
yeah, that dissonance.
They play with our expectations.
Right.
You know, that main musical theme.
Yeah.
It starts with an octave, nice and normal.
Yeah.
But then shifts to a tritone.
Okay.
The devil's interval.
Ugh.
Super unsettling.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Used in horror movies all the time.
Really?
To make you feel uneasy.
I did read an article about the composer
Of Beck, yeah.
saying he used that tritone on purpose
Oh, yeah. He knew exactly what he was doing.
to create that sense of unease, even in those happy sitcom moments.
Exactly. That underlying darkness.
Like, don't get too comfy. This isn't what you think it is.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another thing about WandaVision.
What's that?
It's not just a love letter to sitcoms.
Oh?
It's critiquing the whole superhero thing, too.
Oh, totally. It asks those tough questions.
Yeah, what happens after the big fight?
Right.
How do these superpowered people deal with normal pain?
Like real human stuff.
Yeah, one of the articles you sent in talked about how WandaVision,
Yeah.
it challenges that whole traditional superhero story
Okay.
by focusing on the mental and emotional toll.
The cost of being super
Right, instead of just like,
punching bad guys.
yeah, we see Wanda really struggling with her powers.
Which are both a comfort and a huge danger.
And that's so relatable.
It is.
Especially these days, we see the consequences of power everywhere.
Yeah, in the world, in our own lives.
Right. It makes you think, what does it really mean to be a hero?
Big question, right?
Yeah. Is it about what you can do
Abilities.
or about how you use them, especially when you're hurting?
Deep stuff.
And WandaVision doesn't shy away from those questions.
No, it doesn't.
It makes us think about what's right and wrong.
Even when we feel for Wanda.
Yeah, even when we understand her pain.
It's not black and white. Not at all.
It's messy. Like real life?
You don't see that a lot in superhero stories.
Nope. That's why this one stands out.
It makes you question your own moral compass.
Absolutely.
Like there's no easy answer here.
Right, and that's powerful.
So we've talked about the sitcoms, how they connect to Wanda's grief,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to dig into the specifics.
Yeah. The juicy detail.
Right, how WandaVision ties into the whole Marvel universe.
The MCU.
Right, can't ignore those big reveals.
The clues they dropped along the way.
Leading into all the other stories.
It's all connected.
I'm dying to hear your take on those sources about the show's impact.
Oh, we're just getting started.
But we've got to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
This is getting good.
Oh, yeah. So before we jump to the break, we were really digging into how WandaVision turns the whole superhero thing on its head.
Yeah, like it's not just about saving the world or beating the bad guy.
It's about what happens after that.
Right. How do these superpowered people deal with real life stuff? The messy stuff, the grief, the loss.
Exactly. And WandaVision doesn't shy away from that, man.
No, it leans right in. And one of the sources you sent in,
Yeah.
it compared Wanda's situation to something called complicated grief.
Okay, I haven't heard of that.
It's where the loss is so huge, so tied to who you are, that it's like impossible to move on.
Wow, that sounds...
And the article argues that the sitcom world, it's not just escaping.
Right.
It's Wanda trying to rewrite her whole story.
Like create a world where the pain never happened.
Exactly. And it makes you think about how we all deal with grief.
Yeah, we all have our ways.
Right. And it's like the show is saying there's no right way.
But you got to acknowledge the pain.
Yeah, find healthy ways to work through it.
For sure. What really stood out to you from the sources you read?
One article, it went deep into Wanda's powers.
Okay.
And how they're connected to her emotions.
Interesting.
It said her abilities, that chaos magic,
Mm-hmm.
it gets more unstable, more dangerous.
When she's overwhelmed by grief.
Right. It's like her powers are a reflection of what's going on inside.
Which makes her both incredibly powerful and incredibly vulnerable.
Absolutely. She's walking this tightrope between control and chaos.
And the stakes are huge.
For everyone, not just her.
That's what makes her story so captivating.
So much more than just a superhero punching bad guys.
Exactly. And I think that's why I connected with so many people.
It makes these larger-than-life characters feel real human.
They have the same struggles we do.
Exactly. Even the most powerful beings.
You mentioned earlier how the show had a big impact on the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, yeah. WandaVision shook things up.
Can we get into some of the specifics from those sources you read?
Absolutely. The show introduced some major game changers.
Okay.
Like the multiverse.
Oh, yeah, multiple realities.
Throws everything we thought we knew about the MCU out the window.
Right. Suddenly, anything is possible.
Endless possibility.
It makes you wonder what other versions of these characters are out there. What other realities are waiting to be explored?
Exactly. And I read one article that was speculating
Oh, yeah.
about crossovers with other Marvel properties.
Like the X-Men.
Yeah, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, now that the multiverse is a thing.
That would be wild.
The possibilities are endless.
And then there's the Darkhold.
Oh, that mysterious book.
Wanda studying it in that post-credit scene.
Right, ancient book of dark magic.
Yeah, from the comics.
Powerful, dangerous stuff.
Some of the articles you read talked about how the Darkhold,
it sets the stage for future stories.
like a seed that's implanted.
Exactly, and it might even tie into the next Doctor Strange movie.
Oh, wow. I can't wait for that.
It's all connected.
Marvel does such a good job of weaving those threads together.
Keeps us coming back for more.
And WandaVision didn't just introduce new concepts.
Right.
It gave us Monica Rambeau's origin story.
Her transformation into Photon.
Right. She can manipulate energy now.
And one of the sources pointed out how her powers are directly linked to Wanda's chaos magic.
Showing how intertwined their stories are.
Exactly. The lasting impact of Wanda's actions.
It's like a ripple effect.
Spreading outward.
That's one of the things I love about WandaVision.
What's that?
It's not just about one person. It's about how their choices affect everyone.
The whole MCU.
Yeah, and shape the future.
And knowing what we know now about the multiverse, the Darkhold, Monica's powers.
It makes you want to go back and rewatch WandaVision.
See how those seeds were planted?
Right, like watching a puzzle come together.
You mentioned earlier that the show drew inspiration from specific Marvel comics?
Yeah, from what I'd read.
But it didn't just adapt them directly, right?
I don't think so.
No, it took elements from classic storylines.
Like House of M.
Yeah, House of M, the Vision.
But it gave them a new twist.
Made them its own.
I read about House of M, where Wanda changes reality.
On a massive scale.
To cope with losing her kids. Heartbreaking stuff.
It is, and it makes you think about the consequences.
Of unchecked power.
And grief.
Right.
And then there's the Vision, where he wants to be human.
To have a normal life, a family.
Exactly. And in a way, WandaVision combines those ideas.
Creating this story about grief, love, and the need for control.
And it doesn't shy away from the dark side of those themes?
No, not at all. Wanda's actions, I mean, we get why she does it.
Yeah.
But she causes a lot of harm.
One article compared her to Magneto.
Oh, wow. The X-Men villain.
Yeah, his past is full of tragedy, too.
Right.
And it fueled his extreme views.
That's a really interesting comparison.
They both experienced so much loss, so much pain.
And they both use their powers in ways that hurt others.
But WandaVision makes it clear Wanda's not a simple villain.
Right. She's complicated.
She's trying to deal with her grief with this immense power.
And that's what makes her so fascinating.
You can't easily label her as good or evil.
She's both.
And that makes her story so much more compelling.
It reminds us that even in a world of superheroes,
there are no easy answers.
Right. Good and bad aren't always so clear-cut.
And even good intentions can have bad consequences.
Something to think about.
One of the things I find so fascinating about WandaVision is how it changes what we think a superhero story can be.
Oh.
It's not just about saving the world from some big threat.
Right.
It's about the inner lives of these characters.
Their struggles, their flaws.
How they deal with being human, even with these extraordinary abilities.
And it does all that while still being entertaining.
Absolutely. It's a show that stays with you.
Makes you think about your own experiences.
With grief, loss, the choices we make.
We talked about the show's impact on the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
its portrayal of grief, its inspiration from the comics.
Right.
But I'm curious about those classic sitcom tropes.
Yeah, how they use those.
Did the show strike a good balance, you think?
Between the comedy and those darker themes.
Yeah, because it does get pretty heavy.
I think that balance is what makes WandaVision so unique.
Okay.
So engaging, the sitcom format, it starts off light and fun.
Yeah, comfort.
But as the cracks in Wanda's reality start to show,
It becomes unsettling.
it creates this constant tension,
Yeah.
like something's not quite right.
Even while you're laughing.
Exactly. You're both entertained and a little creeped out.
Like that Halloween episode.
Oh, that one was great.
It pays homage to those classic spooky sitcoms.
The Munsters, the Addams Family.
Yeah, visually stunning, but it also marks a turning point.
Wanda's control starts to slip,
Her grief becomes more intense
and the episode uses those spooky tropes.
to foreshadow what's coming.
Brilliantly done.
It's not just about mirroring the sitcoms.
It's about using them to explore those universal themes.
Family, identity, trauma.
Exactly.
You mentioned that the WandaVision website was full of great information.
A treasure trove for fans?
What stood out to you from the sources you looked at there?
Oh, the website's fantastic. Episode guides, character profiles,
Behind the scenes stuff.
even links to those classic TV shows that inspired the series.
Wow, that's dedication.
One thing that caught my eye, interviews with the creators.
Oh,
Talking about blending sitcoms with the Marvel world.
I bet those were fascinating.
They were. They shared insights into their creative process.
Those challenges they faced.
One interview with Jack Schaefer, the head writer,
Okay.
she talked about how they spent months researching sitcoms,
Really? Wow.
analyzing their structure, the humor.
Oh, they reflected the time?
Yeah, they really did their homework.
That's impressive.
They wanted to understand those sitcoms inside and out,
Not just copy them.
use them to explore these deeper themes.
Grief, identity, storytelling itself.
Schaefer said she sees WandaVision as a meta-commentary
Meta-commentary.
on how television has evolved
Okay.
and how our relationship with these stories has changed,
So it's acknowledging its place in TV history.
but also pushing boundaries.
Wow, that's a lot to pack into one show.
It is. It's both a love letter to the past.
And a glimpse into the future of TV.
Exactly.
And it reminds us that even in a genre like superhero stories.
Where it's often all about spectacle.
Yeah.
There's room for stories that focus on character and emotion.
And big ideas.
Before we went to break, we were talking about how WandaVision challenges our expectations.
Yeah, those assumptions we have about superhero stories.
It forces us to confront tough questions.
About grief, power, reality itself.
But we haven't really talked about the impact on Wanda herself.
That's true. We focused on the MCU and the audience.
But she's at the heart of it all.
Right. WandaVision is a turning point for her.
And I think that's what we need to explore in our final act.
Okay.
Because her story is far from over.
We're back and ready to finish our deep dive into WandaVision.
Yeah, before the break, we were talking about how the show really changes what we think a superhero story can be.
Right. It's got that emotional depth, complexity, stuff we don't always see.
Yeah, it goes deeper than just, saving the world.
But now we got to talk about Wanda.
Yeah, the woman at the center of it all.
We've talked about how the show affects the whole MCU, the audience, all that.
Right, but what about Wanda herself?
WandaVision. It's a huge turning point for her.
And one of the sources you sent in, it made a really interesting point.
Okay.
It argued that the show, it's not just about Wanda dealing with her grief.
Right.
It's about her accepting who she is.
As the Scarlet Witch.
Exactly, a whole new identity.
And the show makes that distinction really clear.
It does.
Up until now, she's been Wanda, the Avenger,
Yeah.
Vision's partner.
Right.
But here, she takes on this title, this destiny.
Oh, her own.
And that destiny, we know from the comics.
It's tied to chaos magic.
Right, this ancient power, incredibly strong.
But also potentially destructive.
Which makes her such a fascinating character.
Absolutely.
She's not just a hero or a villain,
She's something more.
a force of nature.
Trying to find her place in a world that doesn't understand her.
And that's what makes the ending of WandaVision so powerful.
Even though it leaves us with so many questions.
Yeah, we don't get all the answers.
She accepts who she is, the Scarlet Witch.
But she also sees the harm she's caused.
It's a moment of, Triumph and heartbreak at the same time,
I read an article that described that last scene.
where she goes to the cabin.
Yeah, to study the Darkhold.
It called it a self-imposed exile,
Like she's seeking knowledge, control,
but also isolating herself from the world.
maybe out of guilt or fear of her own power.
It's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah, it shows how conflicted she is.
Torn between wanting connection and knowing how dangerous she can be.
And then that scene with her sons, hearing their voice
Yeah, like they might still be out there somewhere.
in the multiverse,
Just a tiny bit of hope.
but also a reminder of what she's lost.
So heartbreaking.
And it sets up her future in the MCU perfectly.
Right. We know she'll be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
And it seems likely she'll be looking for her children.
Which makes you wonder, will she use her powers for good?
Or will she go down a darker path?
Or maybe somehow she'll find a balance.
That's the big question. And I think WandaVision wants us to keep asking it.
It doesn't give us easy answers.
It wants us to see the complexity of her character.
To understand that even with extraordinary abilities, people can make good and bad choices.
And that's a message that applies to all of us, not just superheroes.
It's about the human condition.
Our capacity for love and destruction.
And sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that don't tie everything up neatly.
The ones that make us think, challenge our ideas about right and wrong.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into WandaVision,
What do you think its legacy will be?
I think WandaVision did something incredible. It took the superhero genre,
Yeah?
and it gave it this depth of emotion, this complexity that you don't often see.
Right. It pushed the boundaries of storytelling.
Mixed sitcoms with the supernatural made us think about big ideas.
And it gave us Wanda.
A character who's both powerful and so very human.
It's a show that stayed with me, and I know from the sources you sent in,
Yeah.
it had a huge impact on a lot of viewers.
It started important conversations.
About grief, mental health, the consequences of having power.
Conversations we need to be having in the real world, too.
And WandaVision. It's going to keep echoing through the MCU.
Yeah, it raised more questions than it answered.
We're all waiting to see what happens next with Wanda.
How her choices will shape the multiverse.
And you, dear listener, you can go back and watch it again.
With fresh eyes.
See those details you might have missed.
Think even more deeply about the themes.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.